all of you to the Reservoir Dam meeting, and thank you for joining us tonight. I know you're taking time out of your evening schedules, and we're glad that you're all here. And we have some great information to share with you. Before we get started with that, I'd like to make some introductions. We have David Kroc here, our engineer for the city from OHM. Christian Lynn is here from AECOM. Steve Walker is here from AECOM. Greg McHugh is our Massillon civil engineer. Greg, did he step out for a minute? Okay. Bill Zawiski from the Ohio EPA. Joel Smith, our safety and service director. David Maley, our economic development director. Steve Pedro is over here. Steve is our interim parks and rec director. Art Sylvester is here as our budget director and income tax administrator. And Bob Cypersky is here from our law department. We also have Amy Knapp here from the Independent. Of course, all of our park board members. I'm going to introduce them just in case you don't know them. Ted Schartager, Jeff Bricker, Dave Harding, Ed Greer, and Mark Hawkins. Council members in attendance, we have Councilwoman Ward 1, Sarita Cunningham, Claudette Eisnick, our president, Paul Manson, Council at Large, Joe Creamer, Ward 4, Yvonne Daniels, Ward 3, Megan Sterrett, Ward 5, and Linda Littman, Ward 6. Okay, I want to make sure we recognize all of you. We have several options to share with you this evening, and I'd ask that you remain cordial. We're here to help solve a problem, and I know we have great emotional attachments to the reservoir, but I'd like you to ask that you hear us out and look at all three options, and then we're also, once we're finished here and we post the options up, then we're going to put those out in the hallway for you to look at and kind of see what is required with each option. And we thank AECOM for bringing those options and the costs that go along with that to us. We'd like to thank you for your patience. Of course, our engineering staff and our staff. Everybody has been working diligently on this to get to this evening tonight. At this point, there's no decision that has been made, none at all. We're waiting for your input, we're waiting for council's input, we're waiting for the Park and Rec input. Everyone is seeing this at the same time tonight. So at this point, no decision has been made. I do want to thank Scott Olslager, Kirk Schuring, and Thomas West, the senator and the state representatives. They were able to secure, I did reach out to them, they were able to secure $250,000 to help with our dam. So we do have those dollars that we can access. It's not a loan, it's not a grant, it's just money given to us from the state. So we don't have to pay it back, and it doesn't cost us anything. There also will be time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation, and David Harding, the chairman, will be facilitating that. We are also going to have additional meetings for wards 1, 2, and 3. That will be on October 25th. And those papers will be passed out to you this evening, so you'll know where they are, right here at the Rec Center at 6 o'clock, and wards 4, 5, and 6 on October 31st at 6 o'clock. If you can't make either one of those dates, feel free to give my office a call. I can sit down with you and review anything about the roads that you want to talk about, the catch basins, and also the reservoir. And with that, I'm going to introduce David Kroc, our OHM contracted engineer, and David's going to start talking with you about the renderings and the costs associated with the three options. Thank you very much. Thank you, David.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening, board. I know we've had many discussions about this.
Stand here, Dave. Stand here.
Button on top.
That sounds better. Yeah. All right. So again, thank you all for being here. I think my role this evening is to, first of all, provide a little brief history on where we sort of came from and why we are where we are today. We're going to spend a little time talking about the various options that the folks at AECom have helped us with. They're experts in dams, and they've been helping us throughout the entire process here. Then I thought I'd talk about some of the permitting and requirements that the Ohio Department of Transportation has with the project. But I guess just to start all the way back at the beginning, what I'll do is let's talk about the dam itself. The dam was built in the late 1880s. It was built for water supply for the city back then. It was obviously built well. It lasted quite a long time. But what eventually occurred and what brought us to this point is ODNR last summer indicated this was one of the dams in Ohio that they wanted to see addressed. They have a number of dams they feel are insufficient in terms of hydraulics, in terms of how much water it could pass over the dam. So they looked at one of these, this particular dam, as one that they wanted to have addressed. So right about, actually on the same date that the administration was planning to go to council to talk about options for the dam, we got a letter from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources called Findings and Orders. And what that is essentially a requirement that the city comply with what they want to see done. And essentially in that order, this was back February 21st, the order essentially required three things. First of all, for the downstream safety of residents, they wanted to see the spillway lowered 4 feet. That had to be completed by March 27th of this year. So we had about 6 weeks to accomplish that goal. And then they said that the next two options were up to us. They said you can either reconstruct the dam, and we'll give you until December 2018 to accomplish that, or you can remove and lower and breach the dam, and that has to be done by December of 2017. You know, at that time, what I don't think ODNR understood was how much work had actually been going on behind the scenes. There were a lot of things going on for several years. AECom had been working with the city, contracted with the city to look at options for the dam itself, for the fix. But anyway, we found ourselves in this situation where we had a very tight timeline. We spent a number of meetings with ODNR. Bill from EPA came in and talked to us about what our options were. We went to Columbus a couple times. We did a lot of things to try to make sure that we were making the right kind of decisions. So essentially where we ended up was we did have to lower the dam. We had to take apart the top 3 courses of the dam, and it's now lowered about 4.5 feet below where the water level was before. And that's currently the state it's in right now. And at that point, we asked ODNR, will you allow us to now do what we intended to do a few months back, which was we want to really go through this, get public involvement, understand really not only what the dam should look like, but what should the park look like, what do the residents want to see. So that's really where we've been. We've asked AECom to prepare some renderings of some different options. We've asked them to analyze the cost. One of the sort of hidden costs in any dam project is the dredging of the old lake. If you're going to, which you see out here today, it's only lowered 4.5 feet, but there's virtually no lake. It's basically a stream. So you can see how much silt has built up over the years. And as we start talking through the different options, one of the biggest costs we have really isn't so much the amenities or the dam itself, it's the dredging. And it'll be an ongoing cost. So any sort of dam that goes back, this will have to be something that this board will have to be thinking about in terms of that cost. So I think at that time, or at this point, I think I'm just going to switch. We'll talk through some of the options. I know some of this stuff will be a little difficult to see from where you're sitting. I'll do my best to explain it. And there'll be plenty of time for Q&A later. So if you want more history, I can answer that. If you have technical questions, I'm going to defer those to AECom, the folks at AECom. But as the mayor mentioned, these drawings will be available to review. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and talk about each option. I'll take this with me so you can hear me. So this is our first option, and they're in no particular order. Option one, what we're talking about here is, well, let me step back one more step. Where we sit today, ODNR still considers what we have out there a dam that is still regulated by them, which means they're still looking for us to lower the dam spillway at least one more level of block, as well as do a number of other improvements to the dam itself. So with option number one, what we call this is the stream restoration with a lowered dam. So essentially what we would be doing at the dam itself, we would lower one more level of block. That'd be about another 18 inches lower. We would have the sides slopes laid back a little bit more so it can pass the amount of flow that ODNR is asking us to do. And then what we would have is a stream, the stream running through there in the middle. And then our plan at that point, and talking with AECOM, was what is the best use of the park now if this is the final version? So the idea was to totally restore all the banks, make it all usable land, add the pathways, the gazebo, the deck at the building, at the pump house. We're talking about a bridge to connect over. We want to really make this a very usable park area. So with this, the estimated cost for this is $1.15 million just to do that work. Annual O&M costs, and this would be, minor upkeep along the edges, any type of work like that. We're just estimating $10,000 a year for that work. From a regulatory standpoint, if we lower this dam the additional one block, ODNR will no longer have any jurisdiction over the dam. So any decisions that need to be made locally at that point, not at the state level. Right now, where the dam sits with that extra block, we still fall within their requirements. So the second option we looked at was to construct a small pond still with the lower dam level. Okay, so like we talked in the first option, we would take one more row of block out and lay the slopes back and rebuild the dam itself, or the edges of the dam. That part of the spillway remains the same, one block lowered. What we would do is we would dredge out a small area, 2 or 3 acres of area. And again, the size of this pond is highly dependent on what ODNR is going to accept. I mean, we're going to have to work back and forth with them on what they'll accept with that. But our plan would be a 2 or 3 acre pond upstream. By comparison, I think the lake that was there was 6 or 8 acres, somewhere in that range. So it'd be about half the size. This would also offer us the opportunity to put in some amenities, the new deck at the pump house. We can certainly create some additional upstream recreation areas, but just getting rid of the silt is nearly $1 million, just for that work, to dredge all that out. We would also no longer be under ODNR's requirements. Again, all decisions would be local with option 2 as well. Option 3 is essentially reconstruction of the former dam and spillway and restore the lake to its original size. With this option, probably the biggest change that you'll notice is the dam itself isn't going to quite look like the dam that was there before. This is going to be a large concrete structure. It'll have to meet today's requirements, and again, Steve could answer questions specifically to that, but we anticipate that the height of the dam will also come up a little higher. It'll be a wide spillway. It'll probably be quite a bit wider spillway than what's there now. It does require that we now report annually to ODNR. We will have reports to do annually to them. There'll be a fee annually as well. And the biggest difference in the cost, this cost estimate is nearly $5 million. The biggest difference here is that it's about a $3 million dredging operation to get all the soil out. So as we look at that from an annualized basis, we've seen the reservoir fill up to its current level in about a 10-year cycle. So that's about $300,000 a year that would have to be set aside so we can come back in and probably every 5 to 10 years spend $1 million to $3 million to dredge it out. So it's got a big long-term cost, but This puts the full dam back and the full lake back. The difference is, of course, a lot of the amenities in options 1 and 2, there's no space for those anymore, so a lot of those types of things will go away. Some of the other things that I didn't mention that will be required, that could be costly up front at least, is there's an emergency action plan required. So this is a large study that would be done by a firm like AECOM. It would analyze all the downstream conditions, any potential loss of life, anything that would happen if this dam were to fail, all sorts of other requirements that go along with it. But this would put the dam back essentially in a condition that it wasn't before. Certainly would look different, and that would be the one caution I would have there. So again, I think where we stand right now, we asked for an extension about 90 days ago to allow us to get to the point where we are today. We wanted to start the public discussion. We wanted to get some input, and I know the mayor has some surveys here that we want to get passed out. But really at this point, I think what we'd like to do, Mayor, is open up to Q&A, and we've got a whole panel here of folks that can help answer. So do you want them to come up front here to ask the questions so everybody can hear?
David, is that be one?
Okay, at this point, we'll open up to questions and answers. I'll ask you to follow our usual rules. You have a limit of 3 minutes. Please, when you're going to talk, stand, come up to the microphone. If you would, state your name and your address, if you would, ask your question, things of that nature, and then after 3 minutes, if I have to, I'll say, well, thank you very much, and we'll go to the next person. So don't feel it's anything personal, this is just the way we work. So, does anybody have any questions or anything? And if so, raise your hand. Sir, if you would. Please state your name and your address.
My name is Michael J. Berry. I live at 275 29th Street, Northwest. I've been a resident of Massillon all my life, and this is sickening to see where the reservoir is right now. But there should be no choices. Fix the reservoir the way it was, and it should be. If it was the golf course, there'd be no meeting because the city would be repairing it already. Whether you like the reservoir or not, you should still care how the city takes care of your parks and how they spend your tax dollars. The reservoir could become the best park in the city and an asset. There could be ice skating, fishing classes, and tournaments for children. More picnic areas. We already have a walking path, the children's playground down there. So it's already a start to something good. But it would be a wonderful backdrop for high school pictures, weddings. The area with the old reservoir has endless potentials. Everybody here could come up with an idea for the reservoir.
Mr. Burberry, is there a question in here?
Okay, I thought you said comments too. This is
No.
my comment.
Comments from the answerers.
Oh, okay.
You ask the questions, they'll be.
Sure, no problem. With number 2, is there going to be fishing? Is it going to be stock? Any of the members?
I don't know that that answers that question.
Then it's not complete. Okay. I guess that's all I have, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address, sir.
Thank you. Rod Dietz, 864 11th Street, Northeast. My property is one of the original plots of Kendall. Our deed starts, James A. Madison, President, United States of America. I live in the neighborhood of the reservoir, in a house that's 125-year-old, and I'm curious if the history and heritage of the reservoir is being taken into consideration on any of the 3 plans.
was about the history of the existing dam. You know, we spent quite a bit of time actually thinking about that, looking things up, and we had Blaine Reiser actually provide us a lot of information that he had on it as well. But we have talked to the state historic office in Ohio about it. We've also made sure to be protective of the blocks that are there. We'd like to hang on to those and try to reuse those with any options we have.
Thank you. Mr. Berry, I'd like to apologize to you. My understanding was a little different, and if you've got any other comments to make, feel free to do so. I did not mean to cut you off. That was my mistake. I apologize to you for doing that.
You're just getting even with me from St. Joe's Day.
Absolutely. It's a long struggle, man. Long struggle.
I thought you looked at me.
That's all right. All right, sir, if you would. I say your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is John Grossman. I live at the top of the hill at 705 Cherry Road Northeast. And my question is, whichever option is used, how is that going to affect the putting in of any new walking paths or trees or anything like that? Or my options of taking photography pictures of ducks and that, how is that going to affect what new walking paths are going to be put in? And that's my question. My question was, whatever option is going to be put in, there are the walking paths that go around the upper part. How will they be taken out? Will new ones be put in? Will there be real trees? Will the hills still be there? Will there be trees? Will I have the advantage of seeing hawks, taking pictures of ducks and stuff like that? That is the question.
And I think the answer is the existing paths will remain. What we'll see in both option 1 and option 2 is some additional amenities added to additional paths, some of the pavilion areas, just a more usable green area than the area that was there along the existing pond.
But my question was, will they be reconfigured, or will they still have the same configuration around the park?
Well, right now, obviously, things are quite conceptual, what we're showing here, but I think the existing paths themselves would remain in their current location.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I don't need to walk all the way up there.
Oh,
I think
sir,
everybody
sir,
can hear
excuse
me.
I recognize that person first. I will get to you next, I promise.
Pardon?
I recognize that gentleman first. I'll get to you, I get this, I promise.
I just have one question.
What?
I'm old and I'm retired.
My question is,
Sir, would you state your name, please?
Jim Hubner, 55 6th Street Southeast, next. When you were talking about the cost of dredging over 10-year cycles, as if it's some kind of new fee that we're going to have to pay out of our taxes, but haven't we been doing that for 130 years?
Yeah, the last time it was dredged, I believe, 2001, 2000. Getting sign language from Greg. I think 2004 roughly. So it was dredged somewhat recently. But I think, if you want to have a nice lake, you're going to have to maintain it, I guess is the point. And I think it is appropriate if we think about what those long-term costs are today. So that's really what we're trying to get across with the O&M costs, is that anytime we're going to have a lake on a running stream, we're going to have lots of sediment build up in the lake.
But that's an ongoing problem, right? I mean, we've paid for that before. This is not a new expense that we're going to have to pay for. It's one we're going to have to continue to pay. Is that right?
I don't know how those costs were paid in the past. We're just letting people know these are the costs moving ahead.
But they're the same as they've been in the past.
If it's been dredged, yes.
And it's been dredged how many times over the last 130 years?
I don't know what the answer is.
Real quick, I've been here almost 27 years. Greg McHugh, City Massillon Engineering Department. Last time it was dredged, we spent upwards of $465,000. And that was the only time really in, I think, the 20-something years I've been here that was done. And basically at 465, all that spoil that was taken out of the reservoir was moved over to the side of Mallory and Hankins Road. So it was $465,000, and we only had to move it 500 feet. So I think going forward, excuse me, upwards of looking at $3 million now over 10 years, just because all that has to be moved off-site. We have to find a site to take all that spoil. And I think, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, would that not, Ohio EPA would have to permit, be part of the permitting process?
Not necessarily. The big thing is you can't throw it in a wetland, and you can't place it in a way that you have stormwater runoff so it silts back into the stream. Those would be our basic requirements.
That's the best I can tell you on that. Sir, if you would.
Can anybody answer how we take that $407,000?
Could you wait to be recognized, please? Sir,
Yeah,
your name, please?
Ralph Ricksecker.
Yes, sir.
I've lived in the community since 1982,
Thank you, sir.
and I live in the Charity Rock area. I have only one question, and it has to do with finances. I believe, are we a part of the watershed, the Muskingum watershed? And do we pay anything into that? And if we do they have any kind of resources of helping us financially in whichever of the three plans that are completed?
I'm going to defer again.
Spoke with Greg here briefly, and as I thought, everyone that's in the Muskingum watershed does pay in to that. So everyone in the city would pay in. In the second part of that?
I don't believe there were any grants available.
That's right. A couple of years ago, I think in 2015, the city submitted the Muskingum watershed looking for funds, and there were none available at that time.
Ma'am, did you? Again, would you please state your name and address?
My name is Janet Swiner. I live on 10th Street Northeast, 1743. The first question was, who paid for the $400,000 that we spent before dredging it? How did we pay for that? I'm assuming the city came up with it. My comment and other question is, how would we pay for any of these options? We, today, the city just came out of fiscal emergency. We cannot fix our roads. We can't fix the sewer drains. We have very little money to maintain anything that is within the city. We all pay taxes. We pay for sewer. None of that we're able to maintain based on the budgets that we're in today. So how would we pay for any of this?
Good evening. My name is Barb Sylvester, and I'm the Budget Director, Tax Administrator for the city. And I can give you some information on the financial cost. And again, until a decision is made by all of the persons that the mayor mentioned earlier, then it really wouldn't be determined exactly where the money is coming from. It would be determined, again, through council, the park board, and the administration, and also public input. but I can give you some breakdown of some research that we have done and the time and effort that's been put into this. And I broke it down actually by each option, so bear with me because there is quite a bit of information to put through to you, but I want to make sure we give you all the information. Option number one, the estimated cost of $1,156,000, and then ongoing operating and maintenance of $10,000. The portion that is the ODNR requirement of that amount is $656,366. $500,000 of that is for the park amenities. You see the improvements that are going to be made to the areas that they spoke about. So that right there, those totals minus the Ohio State Bill 310, $250,000 that the mayor was able to obtain for the city, then that means option number one would be a total cost of $906,000 is where that would end up at. Now, we did have some options that were given to us from ODNR, and that was to be able to obtain through the Ohio Water Development Authority. They are willing to offer low interest rate loans. They're not grants, they're loans that have to be paid back. So because of the two different breakdowns, we would have to obtain two different loans. The first loan is a dam safety loan, which has a loan fee associated with it, and it's an interest rate of 2.06%. The second loan would be the fresh water program loan that they have. That's what we would have to borrow for the amenities to put with option number one. And that also has loan fees associated with it. And with the loan fees with it would take it to $501,000. So basically the monthly payment at the two different interest rates for a 20-year loan would be a monthly expense of $4,749. That equals an amount of $56,000 a year, and then the additional $10,000 operating and maintenance cuts takes us to $66,000. So that would be a cost with the loan of $66,000, basically $67,000 per year. The total interest on those two loans then would equate to $230,000 for just the interest. So again, with all of these options that I'll give to you, I will tell you the loan fee is 0.0035 of the total that's borrowed. The term of the loan that we have amortized here is 240 months, which is 20 years. And also the loan is subject to approval from OWDA. We would still have to complete an application. We can't do that until an option is chosen, as well as a contractor is chosen. And the interest rates are as of 10/16 just this week. So as everyone knows, interest rates could change as well. So option number two, I won't have to explain as many things, but it follows the same steps. So the estimated cost that you see here of the $1,438,000, the portion that is the ODNR requirement is $1,194,888. The park amenities are $243,867. If we take from the ODNR requirement amount the $250,000 from the state bill, option number two would be a total cost of $1,188,755. We do have to do the same breakdown of two loans. The monthly expense would be $6,127. The annual cost then of the loan payments would be $73,000, $532 a year. And then the operating and maintenance cost is $110,000. So that would be a cost to the city per year of $183,532. The total interest that would be paid by the city, again, they're two separate loans. The interest rate is 2.06 for the dam safety portion and 2.56 for the fresh water. The total interest on option two would be $278,000 that the city would pay in interest on those two loans. And option number three, as you see on the layout, the total cost is $4,945,790. The ODNR requirement, that portion of that amount is $4,760,000. So if we take that and subtract out the $250,000 from the Ohio State bill, that comes to a total cost, well, the park amenities then is $185,465 out of that total. But the funds needed for option number 3 would be $4,695,790, and that would be again before any annual ongoing expenses for operating and for maintaining it. So again, the Ohio Water Development Authority, it would be 2 separate loans, the dam safety loan at an interest rate of 2.06, the freshwater program loan at 2.56 for the amenities. That total monthly payment would be $24,017 per month. That would be a cost, an annual cost of $288,208 just for the loan payments for those 2 loans. The O&M cost, as mentioned, is $310,000 per annual. That would be a cost to the city of $599,000 per year. The total interest on those 2 loans for option number 3 then would be $1,051,000 that the city would pay in interest alone. So again, the same thing as I said earlier, it is subject to loan application, interest rates could change, and that was based on a 20-year loan, 240 months of payments. Did that answer the question? That I don't know. I was gonna say probably something else.
Maureen Zorger, 956 17th Street Northeast. I live within sight of North Simple Park. Oh, I live within sight of North Simple Park. And these pictures look nicely landscaped. That area would look a lot better if they could clear out the weeds on the embankment from the road down to where the pond was. I don't know how practical that is. The other is, the comment is that silting up is kind of like gaining weight. 20-year-old athlete wakes up 10 years later and hot belly. If he's going to get in shape, it's going to be a lot of